So I'm going to start off the extra part by getting all of the upgrades that I missed in the adventure itself. Well, except for Big's upgrade in the sewers, because, again, it's Big the Cat, and I don't want to trudge through the adventure world with him again. And again, this minigame is pretty tough, actually, because you hit something. And another thing, too, is that it's kind of stiff, because it's not like you can hit a direction on the control stick and press the B button at the same time, and you'll instantly whip around and face what you want to hit. It's not like that. So you can easily feel like you're cheated out of points. And obviously the supersonic dolls are worth more points. Never liked the way those sock puppets look.
Here's the long hammer. Your attack radius is now increased. Try the spin hammer attack.
Meh. I kind of prefer the way the old one looks. I don't know, I guess they both look good. You never really see this hammer show up ever again. You'd think if this hammer was so great, Amy would have kept it in later games. But it won't. That just goes along with my theory that the Pico Pico hammer is a gift from Tails, and so she keeps it for sentimental value, even though it's not as good as the long hammer. But yeah, pretty useless upgrade. A lot of people skip out on it, you don't really need it. And it's kind of easy to miss out on this one, because you might not get the idea to go here. You might not even know there's a hole in the ceiling to begin with.
Your jet anklet.
So that's
Its
where I
jet
left
power
it.
makes you fly faster.
Yeah, this one is really cool because it lets you fly a lot faster, and so you go a lot further as a result. You can go a lot farther without dropping. And so it's pretty much necessary for speedrunning his levels.
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and all the characters look pretty different in the Dreamcast version. And to be honest, aside from Sonic, I think that they all look better in the Dreamcast version. Tails looks so cute.
You're okay. You just sort of conked out there.
I mean,
The last
it is kind of weird that
Lead the way.
Sonic has flesh-colored eyelids and like
Here,
the way
take
he
this.
looks. But again, I like it sort of because he looks more like classic Sonic,
Hey guys,
and
what's up?
he just went out of the classic era, so it makes perfect sense that he would look a lot like classic Sonic. And here's the resolution of a small subplot in Station Square. There was a little girl standing outside the train station waiting for her dad to come home. Again, the game does such a good job of making you care about the people of Station Square, and then it gets destroyed in Last Story, rendering Tails' saving of it completely pointless. Like in SA2, they revealed that they gave Tails a Chaos Emerald as their reward for saving Station Square from being blown up by Eggman. But why would they give him a reward if what he did was rendered pointless? The city gets destroyed anyways. Some accomplishment. Ironically, this is resolved in a different story. Even though you'd think that every character would be at Station Square at the exact same time when they're returning to the adventure field after 100% completion. Although I guess Gamma's is at night. It's weird because in Amy's story, I think it's Amy's story anyways, you go into the burger shop and the girl is working for the guy that she's in love with. And the guy's thinking of asking her out. But you go in there with Sonic's story and she hasn't done that yet, even though you'd expect that it's at the exact same time. But yeah, that's pretty weird, isn't it? You can actually steal the golden Chao egg. This game promotes stealing. You might get the idea to use the mannequin, but you can't really do that. You have to use the rock. Yeah, I'm always impatient waiting for the Chao to hatch, and I always just throw them at the wall. I mean, it doesn't really matter even, because you can just pet them. I don't think it even counts as abuse. One of the biggest problems I have with the Chao system in SC1 is that the game has a really hard time registering when you're petting the Chao. So you can be clearly petting it and it won't even notice. But yeah, the Chao transporter is all about the tiny Chao guard, which you can use by connecting a Game Boy Advance to Sonic Adventure DX and with the link cable. This music is pretty sad. If you choose yes, then asks you if you're absolutely sure. You get to name the Chao with that machine. That's not something that happens in SA2. And here's what happens if you go into it without holding Chao. Yeah, you can transport items from the tiny Chao garden to SA1. I think what phase the Chao has depends on how exactly the egg is hatched, but it's a very complicated thing, and it's a lot of RNG too. So, this is the Chao races. And there's a lot of problems that I have with the Chao races in this game. There's a whole bunch of different stuff about it that makes it inferior to how it was done in SA2. There's multiple different types of races, and each one relies heavily on a single stat. I kind of like the music here, but, well, I'm going to be showing off all of the races, but I'm going to be fast forwarding through most of them. Because you don't want to spend you don't want this part to be like 30 minutes long. In the auto demo version of the game, the Chao are even more annoying than this because they constantly make annoying sounds saying the word Chao over and over again. So this is basically what the power race is about. Your Chao pushes a ball and how fast he pushes it. God damn it. See, this is one of the biggest problems I have with the Chao races in this game. The camera switches randomly away from your Chao. It took me forever to find out that you had to use the control pad to switch the camera back to your Chao manually. Because if you wait for long enough, you'll do that automatically. But even then, there's no way that you can reliably hit the control pad in a certain direction to immediately switch back to your Chao. So it's just annoying, like you're constantly tapping the control pad in desperation trying to look at your Chao again. I think pressing the A button gives your Chao a boost, but it's not nearly as noticeable as when you do it in SA2. There's no clear stamina meter or anything, so I don't really feel like it has a point. Remember those animals that you rescued from badniks in the levels? Well, they actually have a use in this game. You increase the stats of the Chao by giving it to them. Now, there's two ways of increasing a Chao's stats with the animals. You can just walk into them with the animal, or you can do it the smart way and use what I like to call the infinite animals glitch. What you do is that you stand a nut's distance away from the Chao and you place the animal right in front of them. And if you do it just right, then you can level it up to max with one animal. This saves you hours of time grinding the levels for animals, which is incredibly tedious, especially since you're forced to go through the hub world to get those animals in the first place, so you can't just select them from the stage select screen. So it's a lot better to just do this glitch. I'll admit the Chao looks pretty cute when it's clapping its hands and you're holding it and it has its mouth open and stuff. But that's the only time that I really find Chao cute, to be honest. Most of the time, I don't really see why you'd think a Chao is cute. I mean, Tails looks cuter than any Chao. When you give Chao animals, they'll gain skills depending on what animal you give them, and they keep that skill after you remove the animal from them. So, you saw a Chao hopping up and down earlier, that was because I gave it a penguin. This garden is the only one that doesn't crash in the auto demo version. In it, the controls are disabled, and the camera can't be zoomed in or panned out. It takes a while for a Chao to finish eating, especially since sometimes they arbitrarily stop for a while, and then you have to wait for them to keep eating. But yeah, one of the biggest differences between the Chao system of SC1 and 2 is that in order to get a hero Chao, you have to specifically feed them a bunch of hero fruit to gradually change their alignment bit by bit. And to get a dark Chao, you do the same thing, feed them dark fruit. It's done differently in SA2 in a much more convenient way. SA1 basically forces you to spend money at the black market. And in the original Dreamcast version, the black market was a DLC thing. So you had to, like, you couldn't just buy them normally, which sucked. But in the DX version, you can just buy them, whatever. And being forced to spend money to get Hero and Dark Chao isn't that big of a deal, because by this point in the game, you probably have a lot of rings from all of the levels that you've beaten from beating the game normally. You're forced to win all of the Chao races to get all the emblems. But it's not really that big of a deal as long as you use the Infinite Animal glitch. In the auto demo build, the garden has no hit orbs, no elevator, no stadium entrance, and no garden orbs. Yeah, so I showed off the different missions there. Like, it's not just the same 2 missions. Like, Sonic has different missions from the other characters. This sucks. I hate the masks that the Chao put on themselves. They don't look nearly as good with the masks on. And in order to get the mask off, you have to jump into them and abuse them, which makes them hate you. Although you can easily make it up to them by just petting them or giving them animals a whole bunch. But still, it just sucks how you can't just tell them to get the mask off them. In SA2, you had to give them a specific animal to make them put the mask on them. In the auto demo build, you can actually follow the map through the elevator's location, and the columns in the room aren't solid either. And the trees don't drop nuts. Yeah, see what I mean about Tails getting stuck in the ceiling? And here's why I hate the light speed attack. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go along that trail of rings, but no. I wasn't even pressing anything on the control stick there. He just decided, and look, I didn't want to. Why is the light speed attack trying to attack ball and chains that it can't hurt? Here's what happens when you whistle when you have high affection Chao. They start running after you. And I like how Chao can decide to feed themselves, so you don't have to feed them. So you can just leave them alone and stand in the pool and they'll feed themselves. Obviously, giving them food increases their stamina. No matter what food it is, they always get their stamina increased. And the biggest problem I have with the Chao system in both SA1 and 2, and the reason that a lot of people dislike it and just beat up the Chao instead, is that it's boring. It takes too long for Chao to evolve and reincarnate, because you have to literally wait for several hours. Like, you literally have to have your character standing in the Chao garden for hours and hours. And that's how it gets the Chao to evolve and reincarnate. So, if you only have a few Chao, raising Chao is boring because it's just a bunch of waiting around doing nothing, waiting for them to age. And sure, you can keep revisiting stages to collect animals to increase their stats, but if you want the Chao to get closer to their evolution and reincarnation to get better ranks, then you're gonna have to actually spend time in the gardens with them, which means standing around waiting for something to happen. And you know what I really hate? When a Chao decides to go to sleep when you're trying to raise its stats. Well, thank you, now I have to wait for you to wake up. Seriously, I hate it when that happens. Also, the second biggest problem I have with the Chao races is that sometimes Chao will randomly decide to go to sleep, and I'm not really sure what causes them to do that or how you get them to quickly stop doing it. SA2 doesn't have that. Like, they don't randomly decide to go to sleep for a couple seconds. Sometimes they trip based on how low their luck stat is, but that's about it. If you put a Chao in the Chao transport in the auto demo build, it'll end up getting deleted. I don't think they want that to happen. The jewel races are literally the exact same race, and that's why I didn't really show them. It's just that you have to complete the same race, only now it counts for an emblem. I at least like the fact that they made a great effort in showing all sorts of different Chao racing you. Like, they all look different, it's not like they all look the same. And so they show off the different evolutions of the Chao pretty well. Like, there's not just Hero, Dark, and Neutral Chao. There's also they also evolve depending on what stat is the highest. Like the Swim Chao will evolve if its Swim Chao is the. But the really annoying thing is that you can have all of its levels be maxed out, and it feels completely random what it'll evolve into. I hate how annoying it is
Good enough.
trying to get it to evolve into a Swim Chao or whatever, but it just randomly decides not to for some reason. Like, it feels completely random, and in order to increase the rank of a stat, you have to have them evolve into a Swim Chao, for example, in order to increase the rank of their swim stat. So, if you got a Chao with a bad rank, and you want to make their rank better, they're pretty much forced to only max out the levels of that stat, and then wait until it evolves to max out every other level. Because that's the only way that you can guarantee that it'll give you the evolution you want. And if you keep on increasing the ranks of Chao, then eventually you'll get an LS Chao, but that takes a really long time, so it really isn't worth it. You don't need a Chao with perfect ranks to get all the emblems. Yeah, Chao can start drawing on their own despite not having... It's not like they were ever taught how to draw. So I guess it's more convenient. The drawings look kind of crappy though. I heard that if you stand on top of a Chao's drawing, it'll cry, but that didn't happen here. Maybe it's only in SA2? Yeah, and Chao can actually fly around in the gardens. But yeah, I think that abusing Chao can actually be pretty fun, but the biggest problem I have with it is that, well, there's also the fact that you can do it by accident. But whenever you abuse a Chao, you have to wait for it to get up before you can start abusing it again. I don't think you can do that in SA2. I think that the Chao just ignores your petting it, no matter how long you pet it, and you have to pick it up and then start petting it. But in SA1, if you keep petting a crying Chao, eventually it'll start responding to it. But yeah, the best way to abuse the Chao and keep having fun with it is to make sure that it's in the water. Because then you can just constantly attack it, and you don't have to wait for it to get up. You can just constantly attack it. And I'll admit, abusing Chao is a lot more fun than raising them properly, because raising them properly means you have to constantly wait around waiting for them to age. And I just love how many different animations they give the Chao, especially for reacting to being abused. Like, they really put a lot of effort into giving them all sorts of different animations. And granted, there's a lot more to do in a garden when you're in a garden with a whole bunch of different Chao in it. That's why I spend so much time in gardens that are completely full. There you've got more to do because there's always going to be at least a couple Chao that are awake for you to interact with them. But even with all 8 Chao in the garden, you're still going to be spending all of your time waiting for a Chao to wake up so that you can feed them 2 nuts, and then go on to wait for some more Chao to wake up, or run around the garden taking Chao out of the pool, which is something you'll need to do sometimes, believe me. And raising the stats to Chao is also pretty boring when it comes to actually giving them the stat increasers. And when you raise their stats the right way, it is quicker, but it's still going to take hours to max out the stats of a Chao, even using the glitch. So it's hours of mind-numbingly boring repetition. That's how I describe the Chao system. I mean, it's satisfying seeing their ranks go up from an RPG sort of sense of accomplishment. Having to win so many different races is pretty fun. Although it still sucks that he's just sliding around. His feet aren't even moving. That's so lazy. Yeah, it's weird. They can actually fall asleep sitting up. And I like how they give a different jingle depending on whether it evolves into a hero Chao or a dark Chao. And if it's a neutral Chao, they don't give any jingle at all because they were lazy. Like, the races are kind of fun, but you're just watching your Chao move around. Like, you don't actually control the Chao, it just moves on its own. So, it takes hours to make even one Chao win all of the races. So that can be kind of boring. Big is one of the worst characters to use for the Chao Garden because, well, he's big. He's really tall. So it's kind of awkward interacting with such shorter Chao. And the same goes for Gamma. He's like 9 feet tall or whatever. And I heard a rumor that you can blast Chao with Gamma and kill them, but I can't get him to recognize them as a target. I've heard a rumor that there was an invisible health meter for the Chao, where if you abuse them long enough, they eventually die. Now this is a common thing for the Chao system, where if you abuse them too much, it decreases their lifespan. And Chao will eventually die instead of reincarnate and become an egg again. But, I don't know, I've spent a really long time in SA1 abusing Chao, and they never died on me a lot sooner than I'd expect. They died sooner from a decreased life expectancy, but never really early. There's a lot of problems that I have with the Chao system, and I'll go more into depth with it later on, I guess. My point is, it's boring because you don't have much to do. But I at least love the gardens. They're not nearly as good in SA2. Next part, I'll show you some content exclusive to the DX version, and some awesome glitches.